This Equipment World video is brought to you by Phillips 66 Lubricants, keeping the world running smoothly. What's going on, everyone? I'm Wayne Grayson, and you're watching Equipment World. Welcome into another episode of The Dirt, the video podcast that brings you interviews and discussion on the latest in heavy equipment, trucks, and construction industry trends. Today on The Dirt, we're talking with Jason Boerger of Bobcat to discuss the new E60 compact excavator. The E60 is the latest machine to be added to Bobcat's new R2 series generation of excavators. So while we'll definitely get into the specifics of the E60 itself, we'll also be talking about the lineup-wide improvements to these machines that has been brought on by this R2 generational leap. So let's get into it. Hey, Jason, man, welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us today on The Dirt. How's everything going for you?
Great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the offer, and I'm glad to get into some topics today.
Yeah, man, no problem. Me as well. All right, so but before we get into the specifics on the E60 itself, talk a little bit about this new R2 series lineup that this machine is part of. You guys launched this lineup with the E42 and the E50 last year. So, what were some of the guiding principles? There's probably a better way to say that, but what were some of the guiding principles for you guys in the development of this new compact excavator range?
So to answer that, I kind of like to go back a little bit and talk about our series. We started with that 4 to 6 ton size range that you mentioned. That was M series up till not that long ago. And so we had M series and R series running concurrently, and then we kind of skipped all the way to R2 series. So 3 years ago, or 2 Con Expos ago, we launched that 3 ton R series, and we really saw a lot of pretty great improvements from going from that M series to R series. And over the course of time, we had different projects. We were transitioning different models in coming into that R series. And we got to that 4 to 6 ton project, and we kind of hit this this road where, Bobcat is constantly churning, right? We're always talking with our customers, trying to innovate, solve problems for our customers. And we kind of hit this point where it's like, we've got some things that we're ready to do here. And so why wait, right? So we had this 4 to 6 ton lineup. It needed to move into our series, but we had these other things ready to go as well. So why not, kind of best of both worlds, knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. And that's kind of where we are today. So the E42 and the E50 that you mentioned, and even the E60 now, are going to get all those R series upgrades, moving from M to R. And then they're also now going to get these new things that we had been developing, and we're ready now to release to customers. So it's kind of like, if you've been that E42 customer and you've been waiting a little bit for that new model to come out, you really got 2 upgrades in one, if you will. So it's been a little bit of a transition getting to R, and now that we're ready to start rolling out R2. So that 4 to 6 ton really jumped and kickstarted us off of that R2 series.
Nice. And, one of the things that kind of struck me about this, just kind of looking back over the last few years, is that the E60 is a revival model, right? It was around until the E63 showed up back in 2013. So, apart from the R2 series improvements that we're going to get into in a bit, is this new E60 different from the old E60 in any kind of way, and just from the hardware standpoint of size, weight, horsepower, and any of the other kind of hardware details?
A lot has changed. So as you mentioned, when that thing sailed off into the sunset, if you will, back in 2013, you really have to think about it. I think that machine launched even earlier than that. So obviously 5, 6 ago, I'd say 2008, right? 2008, 2009 is when that launched. So we're talking well over a decade old, especially with the design. So to talk about E60 of old days versus E60 of new days, so you're talking 10 to 15 years of not only just Bobcat improvement, but really industry improvement. And if I had to wrap it up in a nutshell, I think you can take a look across the industry, regardless of compact, heavy, what have you, and you'll see a pretty stark difference in the equipment from 10, 15 years ago to today. But between the 2 E60s, if we're really talking specifically, the cabs, that is a huge change. Cabs from 15 years ago till now, there's been so much improvement. We have wider, more roomier cabs for our operators now. You can get a high back seat now, which is not necessarily something that was readily available 15 years ago. We've got displays that are like the displays that we have in our vehicles today, which 15 years ago, you might have had a little tiny screen that gave you a couple digits to tell you what code you might be throwing in your equipment. So inside the cab itself, there's just a world of difference. It's almost like being in a vehicle these days, and it's really a comfortable cab with the Bobcat equipment. But more than that is for the operators to notice the difference in the performance from 10 to 15 years ago. There's been obviously advancements there as well. And I would say the big one from E60 to E60 would be, we were still in interim tier 4 stage way back then, right? So I think I think we were utilizing a Yanmar IT4. I think it was a non-turbo engine. And so to move from an IT4 to our first, this is actually our Bobcat engine that we have in it now. It's a non-DPF tier 4 Bobcat engine that's actually had some improvements over the engine that we designed, helped design 7 years ago. So we've seen some substantial improvements in the engine. And then along with that, the hydraulics of an excavator are the lifeblood of the excavator, right? So we've seen improvements there as well within the hydraulics and the cylinders. And today in E60 versus yesterday in E60, you're going to see some increased performance as well with the hydraulics. You've got better breakout forces, better digging forces. You've got a lot better over the side now with R2 series excavators with some of your over the side capabilities and performance. And so really from inside the cab to what's going on outside the cab, there's a pretty stark change if a customer is going from an older E60 to a newer E60.
And Jason, with this new machine, obviously performance is going to be a lot better. But in terms of kind of where it sits in your lineup, did you guys kind of keep the size and weight pretty much the same?
Yeah, Wayne, I think, to talk about the lineup, I'd be remiss if I didn't also include kind of what we're doing with the M Series E55 and E63, because that kind of is part of the conversation as well. We really, looked at this lineup and we've made some significant improvements in performance going from that M, getting that R series, and then getting that R2 series on top of it. So we've, you kind of started here and then you kind of slowly inched your way up, right? When you're looking at side by side with some of our, models in the last series and then even the E60, right? So we've got better performance out of an E60 today than we did an E60 yesterday. So when we looked at our model lineup, we went out to our customers, we talked to them, we showed them the E60, we let them operate it, give their feedback, and we talked to the E55 customers, we talked to the E63 customers, and I think, obviously there's an improvement in performance or an increase in performance going from that 55 to the 60, and we talked to our E63 customers and said, how does this compare? Well, there was so much of an improvement over yesteryear in that E60 or that 6-ton size in what we're running in there, that we're pretty darn close as far as when you're looking at specs. And so I think somebody might sit there and say, 6-ton, 5.5-ton, 6.5-ton, obviously they're going to think there's a step in between, but we've made such an improvement with the E60 that we're pretty close to those E63 numbers. And so we did get a couple questions on, capabilities, with close to a 6.5-ton versus a 6-ton. And so we're offering the optional counterweight on that machine. And so once we put that counterweight on and brought that to customers, that pretty much put all concerns aside. So we went down from 2 models down to 1 model based on our feedback from our customers. And I think that's a good direction for us. And I think those E55 customers are going to see an improvement there. And the E63 customers are very happy with all the R2 series upgrades. Plus it's meeting their performance expectations.
So are there plans right now to update that E63 to the R2 series as well? Or are we a little too early out to talk about that?
No, I can talk about that. So the E55 and E63 are going away. Really, that feedback that we got from our customers is, again, we did really well with improving that overall performance where we're pretty close to that E63 as is. And then you add on that optional counterweight and all of our, a lot of our customers that we went out and visited, we pretty much took away all the concerns with capabilities once we put that counterweight on. And, we still had a good fair share of customers that were happy with it without the counterweight. So we kind of looked at that as an opportunity to really simplify our lineup. It helps out our dealers quite a bit as well for stocking. It helps out our customers. We have more machines available at the time when they come into the dealership. So really moving down from 2 models to 1, we were able to satisfy both that E55 and that E63 customer. Like I said, there's lots of improvements we've made with R2. So that's going to be the lineup moving forward, is that E42, E50, and E60.
Well, that's definitely a really interesting change there in the lineup. What was that hope for consolidation? Was that kind of part of maybe the development of the process as well? Was that a consideration, I guess is what I'm saying, of like hoping to go down, to basically consolidate, a third of the lineup or whatever that is?
Yeah. So, I mean, with the 4 to 6 ton were the last remaining handful of models that needed to get upgraded, essentially, right, into the R series or R2 series, if you will. And really in that entire portfolio, we went from 5 to 3 models. And what at the heart of that, what we're seeing was we saw some increases in some of our specifications. We saw some increases in performance. And when we took it out to customers, it became pretty clear that we were meeting some needs in some of those bigger sizes with some of those smaller models, if you will.
Well, Jason, on the new E60, lift over side and over the side digging performance have both improved. So what has made those improvements possible specifically?
Yeah, so one of the things that we did a few years ago with the R series excavators is we added dual flange rollers, which we went from single flange to dual flange. And it's, again, I'm probably oversimplifying this if one of our engineers is listening, but essentially, we've brought more steel and more of that undercarriage closer to the track's edge. So if you think about it, we're getting a little wider with some of those components. And if you think about, getting a little wider, you can just imagine how that would improve some of those over the side specifications. So really just that switch going from single flange to dual flange has really made some increases. Not only in the capabilities over the side, but digging as well. And then as a side benefit, we've also seen some comfort improvements in the ride quality as well.
Now, one of the new R2 series improvements that you see on the new E60 is this new 55 horsepower engine. What are the improvements with this new engine? What about this machine is going to be better thanks to this new engine? Before we get into that, I do want to take a quick second and talk to you about our sponsor for this video, Phillips 66 Lubricants. Moving piles of earth, extreme hot and cold conditions, obviously construction and mining are tough environments. They're run by tough machines, and those tough machines need the toughest lubricants available to protect them. Now, there are thousands of mining operations in the US, and 60% of them trust just one brand to keep their equipment going, and that is Phillips 66 Lubricants. Now, they've put thousands of hours into testing, and when you look at the results, it's pretty clear why so many operations put their trust in Phillips 66. Take Gardall ECT. It far outperforms the competition in wear protection and corrosion tests. So whatever you've got, graders, end loaders, dump trucks, Phillips 66 will protect it. Our thanks again to Phillips 66 Lubricants, keeping the world running smoothly. What about this machine is going to be better thanks to this new engine?
So the Bobcat engine itself has been around for almost a decade, 7-8 years, something like that now. And so this most recent version of the engine had some upgrades that I think the customers are going to notice and appreciate right away. Even from the common service items. And maybe that's something that is most noticeable right away to customers is, oil interval changes, right? That's a big one for customers. It's something they deal with often. So moving from 500 hours to 750 hours, I mean, that's kind of a nice deal for them. Having a bigger fuel filter that lasts longer, that's another nice little perk. So some of the serviceability things that go along with that. But I think the big item here that's changed with our engine and the big improvement is a new fuel system, an upgraded fuel system. So with that, like I said, we've got a bigger fuel filter, so it's going to last longer. It's got 2 times the surface media. It's got a clear water bowl on it. It's got a sensor on it. So, if you need to service it or it's plugged or if there's an issue, it's going to tell you in the cab when that happens, right? So right away when there's something there. We've got a pre-filter on it now. So, I mean, yesteryear you had to have, those little screens in your fills when you're filling at you filling it with diesel at the station, you've had to have your own screen. Well, we put a pre-filter on it now as well. So we're trying to protect that better. We've had primer bulbs in the past, right? This is a self-priming system now. So we have a lift pump versus an old, the older fashioned primer bulb. Our cooling package has changed. That's a side-by-side system now. So it's a little bit more efficient. And again, I think the maintenance overall has been a staple for Bobcat, but that's gotten a little bit better too.
Now, I think just a second ago, you mentioned that new side-by-side cooling system that's present in this machine. Talk about why that side-by-side heat exchanger design is so much better at controlling engine temperature.
I'm gonna simplify it as best I can, and I think the engineers will tell me that that's too simple of an explanation. But really, it's all about airflow, and I think side by side versus stacked is kind of where you're going to see some of those changes, right? So, or those efficiencies. And I think when you've got a stacked system, so you got two heat exchangers side by side, right? Like, so you get airflow moving through one and it goes into the other. So you've got fresh, cooler air moving in through one cooler into the next cooler. Well, it's one cooler already. So you don't have fresh, cool air going into that second cooler. Now, when they're, side by side, you've got fresh air coming into both equally. So it's a much more efficient system. I know I probably simplified that a little bit too much, but it's a pretty simple theory that, taking cold air in both versus cold and then warm air in the other, it's a more efficient system, and it's just really helping that overall cooling system out quite a bit.
So an available option on this model is a hydraulic clamp diverter. Tell me about that feature and what types of jobs and situations where that can come in handy.
Right. So this is something that I think our customers are going to appreciate. They've been asking for it. It's not necessarily something that's new in the industry. But it's a nice little feature to have, and it's really all about where you send the hydraulic oil. If you're sending it to the clamp or if you're sending it to the attachment, you kind of have that choice there. But the big benefit is that you can leave that clamp on, and rather than hassling with it, removing hoses, removing clamps, things like that. So and really, I guess the best example I can come up with on where you would use that, where it makes most sense. If you're talking about a demolition guy, right? So he's got a breaker on it, and he left that clamp on it, right? So at the end of that job, when he's done breaking everything, he's got to go grab his bucket and take that clamp and put everything in the dump truck and send it on its way, right? So really that diverter valve lets you move that flow between the attachment and the clamp. And so he can leave that clamp on when he's breaking, and when he's done, he just takes off that breaker. It's a real simple process, throws on the bucket, changes that valve over with just a simple turn, changes it over to the clamp, and he can go. There's no really hassle. There's no removing clamps. There's no taking off hoses. And it's just kind of it's a nice versatility thing. It keeps things simple. It keeps things fast and easy. And just, moving from one thing to another. I know our customers and our guys out there that are doing those jobs, they are just one after the other, just moving fast. And so that's a nice feature to have, to keep things fast, easy, and simple. And
one more option available on this new machine, Jason, is the new touchscreen. What kind of go into kind of what comes standard, the display that comes standard with this machine. Go into the touchscreen and some of the improvements that you'll get if you upgrade to that touchscreen.
So I kind of like to compare our new displays to our old deluxe displays. So for our customers that are familiar, we kind of went from here and here to here and here. So, our new standard is even an upgrade over our deluxe display. And so, to start out with the 5-inch display with the jog shuttle, it's not touchscreen, but it's 5-inch standard display with a jog shuttle. It's a great screen. It has a lot of capabilities in it. You can put operator codes in it. You can track operator hours, fuel efficiency, idle hours. If an operator throws a code, you know who did it and when, and if they kept operating when they shouldn't have, and things like that. So it's great to keep track of what's going on with each operator. You get detailed service information. I think that's one that's really stood out to owners and operators everywhere is, password and security, keyless security. I know compact equipment is great. It's easy to use, it's nimble, but it's also nimble and easy to use and get out of construction sites, right? So theft is a big thing. So password protection, operator codes, and detailed service information are some of the big hitters, I think, in that standard screen that people like. I know if you throw a code in yesteryear and you get a bunch of random digits, you have to go look in the operator's manual, figure out what's going on with your machine. With these new displays, they're going to give you detailed service information, so you can potentially troubleshoot right there in the field, or at least you know exactly what's going on with your machine. You can make a phone call if need to. So I think those are the big ones. I think with that new 7-inch touch display, that's an option. I think the best way that I could describe that is it's a lot like having the nice features you get in your truck and those displays, while still being able to use it in an open cab excavator, right? It's made for, it's really made for being outside and rugged and outdoors and stuff. And so, you know, it's been through pressure wash tests. This is maybe a little bit too technical, but on the hardness scale, it's like a 9H in the Mohs scale, which is pretty scratch resistant. And so I think initially people saw touchscreen, they thought open cabs, and they thought, I don't know about compact equipment, but it really does. It's been through the ringer, it's been through the tests, and you can make, it's connected to Bluetooth. You can make phone calls while you're in the cab. You can stream music. It's, like I said, it's a lot like, you get all that great stuff that you expect out of a standard display, but it's a lot like being in your truck and having all the niceties of that entertainment system right in the cab of your excavator.
Now, you went into this a little bit earlier when we were talking about cooling and engines, but yeah, talk a little bit about the ease of maintenance with this new machine.
Maintenance has always been a staple of Bobcat equipment, really. So what I'll say is that doesn't change with R2 series excavators. That's still one of the most important pillars for us. And, you've got great access at the tailgate, as always, to get to a lot of those engine components. Alternator access, starter access is great. And that's because the counterweight is not necessarily in the way for us. That's kind of positioned in a way that allows you to get easily to the engine components. That side opening, that side panel allows you to get to a lot of the hydraulic components. So as far as access goes, we're great. Getting to the starter and alternator can sometimes be an issue, but with our equipment, you can get to that fairly easily. We talked about the cooling system that's improved. That's also something from a serviceability standpoint that's improved, because you don't have stacked coolers anymore, so you don't have to separate those to clean them out. It's just one solid cooler that's easy to clean. And then you have longer intervals with the oil filter and the fuel filter. So overall service is still at the forefront with our excavators, and it's even improved some since the last series. So improvements within serviceability are something that comes with that R2 series excavator as well.
All right, Jason. Well, hey man, look, that's all the time that we've got. Really, really great stuff. This new R2 series has had some really seriously nice improvements over the previous generation. So thanks, man. Thanks for coming in to talk to us about it, and stay safe out there, man. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Wayne. Have a great one.
All right, guys, that is all for this episode of The Dirt. As always, let us know what you think about the new E60 and all of the other R2 series improvements that Bobcat has made to its compact excavators in the comments below. And if you liked this video and found it useful in your next machine purchase or rental, do us a favor and hit the like button below. It really does help our channel out. And if you want more videos and coverage on the latest in construction equipment, visit us at our website at equipmentworld.com. And while you're there, subscribe to our daily newsletter. And if you haven't already, subscribe right here on our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. Hit the bell to make sure that you're receiving up-to-the-minute alerts whenever we drop a new video so you don't miss any. Thank you guys so much again for watching. We always appreciate your time. We'll see you next time.